And we are rolling. Good morning, afternoon, and or evening, ladies and gentlemen. I finally learned what the heck it means to upload again, and after fiddling with OBS for way too much time, giving up, decided to go ahead with the Arizona Cardinals video anyway. And this is part one of that because DSLR only records about 30 minutes of footage. So yeah, let's get right into it. And brief disclaimer before we get started. I do not hate the Arizona Cardinals. I'm a Packers fan, so the Hail Larry still scars me for the rest of my days. But I got nothing against the Cardinals. You guys have a bright future. Kyler Murray's a stud. Hopkins is great. Christian Kirk is a great second option. Got the problems to iron out on the defense, but you guys are set up for a while, hopefully. This isn't about the future of the team. This is about the past, scarred with failure and disappointment, moving, and a lot of other things. So, without further ado, roll the intro. I don't really have a good intro right now, but on this channel I like to talk sports. In 1898, an amateur neighborhood football group in the south side of Chicago called the Morgan Athletic Club was founded. The team was then acquired by contractor Chris O'Brien, who moved their games to Normal Field on Racine Avenue in 1901. O'Brien then bought a host of used jerseys from the University of Chicago, which were a faded maroon. O'Brien then famously declared when asked about the color of those jerseys, "That's not maroon, that's cardinal red." Thus, the Racine Avenue Cardinals were born. In 1906, the team was disbanded for a little bit, because even though most football in Chicago at the time was amateur, they were struggling to find competition. In 1913, the team would be reorganized, and in 1917, they won a Chicago Football League championship. 1920 rolled around, and the future franchise would truly begin. They would put up the $100 required to join the APFA, the American Professional Football Association. That, of course, would morph into the NFL. The Cardinals were one of the original 11 founder teams. They are the oldest team in the NFL. No joke. In 1922, they would become known as strictly the Chicago Cardinals after a team from Racine, Wisconsin, the Racine Legion, joined the league. In 1925, they won the NFL championship under coach Norm Barry in an offense that was first in yards and second in points, and a defense that was first in yards and third in points allowed. This was accomplished by simply having the best record in the league at 11-2-1. The NFL did not have a postseason playoff until 1933. The next 23 years, the Cardinals ranged from mediocre to outright terrible. However, there were a few interesting moments in that time frame. One of them being when player-coach Ernie Nevers scored an NFL record 40 points in a game by way of 6 touchdowns and kicking 4 extra points in 1929. 1929 was also the year Charles Bidwell Sr. purchased the team, and to this day, the Bidwell family still owns the franchise. Another really interesting moment was them merging with the Pittsburgh Steelers in 1944 to create Card Pit. The reason why Card Pit was even created was because of a reorganization. The Boston Yanks had joined the league that year, and the Cleveland Rams had come back after suspending operations the year prior because many of their players were drafted into World War II. This would create an 11-team league in a time when there was only a 10-game schedule. They couldn't find a way to settle that scheduling issue as they wanted all of the teams to play each other, so they decided to merge the two franchises. Card Pit existed for 1 year and went 0-10. The media at the time began referring to them as the car pits, referring to the things the mechanics will stand in to do their work, because everyone just rolled all over. In 1947, the Cardinals would win their second and final NFL championship. They would win it off the arm of quarterback Paul Chrisman, who was skying it out to ends, wide receivers, Mal Kuttner, Billy Dewell, and rookie right halfback Charlie Tribby. The Cardinals had the 3rd best offense in the NFL at that time and the 6th best defense. They would secure a 9-3 record in the Western Division at the time, go to the NFL Championship versus the Philadelphia Eagles and win 28-21. The next year, they would go 11-1 with an offense ranked first in points and third in yards, and a defense ranked third in points and 7 in yards to face the Eagles again in the NFL Championship. However, they would lose this one, 7-0. Not even Packers legend Curly Lambeau could save the team, as he went to coach for them in 1950 and 51. Ranging from mediocre to bad, the team began to lose a lot of money as the crosstown Chicago Bears flourished. This would lead to a major decision. The owner at the time, Violet Bidwell Wolfner, made the decision to move the team to St. Louis in 1960. New horizons, a new market that they didn't have to share. This was going to be the turnaround that the team needed. They would then miss the playoffs for 14 straight years. The Cardinals were bad. It didn't matter that they were in St. Louis, they were terrible. However, that began to turn around. A hope began to take over on the horizon in 1974. Second-year head coach Don Coryell brought the Cardiac Cards to a division-winning 10-4 record, 7 of those wins coming in the last minute of the game, hence the nickname. Quarterback Jim Hart also won NFC Offensive Player of the Year. They would go on to lose in the divisional round of the playoffs, but there were signs of life for the first time in forever. The next year, they would win the division again, this time at 11-3, but would lose in the divisional round again. 1976, they would go 10-4 and miss the playoffs. In 1977, saw the team start 7-0, but finish 7-7 and miss the playoffs again. Coryell was out after the collapse in 77, and he would go on to revolutionize the NFL with his offense in San Diego. After more years of utter failure, the Cardinals would make the playoffs in 1982 in the strike-shortened season. However, they would be obliterated handily by the Packers, 41-16. They would then miss the playoffs for 6 more years after that, until 1988. The only thing really notable in that time frame would see the retirement of quarterback Jim Hart in 1984. He is still the franchise's leader in every single major passing stat. 1988 would be another major turning point for the franchise. Everything would change once again. After 28 years in St. Louis, Bill Bidwell decided that they needed to be on the move again. This time to sunnier climes in Arizona. After the move, they would miss the playoffs for another 6 years, as the Phoenix Cardinals. 1993 would mark the year that their name changed officially to the Arizona Cardinals. The next time the Cardinals would make the playoffs would be 1998. They would sneak into the wild card at 9-7, after winning their last 3 games all by a field goal or less. They would face the Dallas Cowboys, but this was not the Cowboys team of dynasties of old. And in fact, they would lose to the Cardinals, 20-7. Now this just made me sad when I first heard it, so I'm gonna make you sad too when you hear this. This was the Cardinals' first postseason win since the 1947 NFL Championship. However, that wouldn't last. They would be beat by 20 points, 41-21, by Minnesota in the divisional round. 1998 would also be an important year for the Cards because of the drafting of safety Pat Tillman out of Arizona State with the 226th pick in the draft. Tillman was a promising young safety who made the All-Pro team in 2000, but that is, of course, not what he is known for. In May of 2002, he left football to join the Army to become a Ranger. Tillman was killed in a friendly fire incident in Iraq in 2004, and to this day, many controversies still surround his death. His number 40 is retired with the Cardinals, and number 42 with Arizona State. May he rest in peace. From 1998 to 2003, it was just more failure. Their best record in that time span was 7-9, so yeah. However, in 2003 would see a couple of notable incidences, such as the Cardinals drafting wide receiver Anquan Boldin from Florida State. Boldin would have an illustrious career, which started with the greatest debut a rookie receiver has ever had, when he had 10 catches for 217 yards and 2 touchdowns versus the Lions in his first ever NFL game. This, though, notably, was also the year where in Week 17, quarterback Josh McCown threw a game-winning touchdown to knock the Vikings out of the playoffs. Yeah, you've probably seen that play before and heard the call from the Minnesota radio announcer, but as a Packers fan, thank you for that. In the 2004 season, they would have the 3rd overall pick in the draft and would use it on wide receiver from Pittsburgh, Larry Fitzgerald. Yep, that guy. It's now time for years of pain. Congratulations, Cards. You know what comes next. They would then go on to finish the next 3 seasons 6-10, 5-11, and 5-11 again. 2005 would be a far more important year than their record indicated, though, as they would sign quarterback Kurt Warner to be backup/competition for Josh McCown. And after a few more years of them not being good, they would hire coach Ken Wisenhunt in 2007. Warner would play on and off for those 3 years and show flashes every now and then. In 2008, though, he would officially beat out the younger Matt Leinart for the starting gig. Warner would pay back the Cardinals in kind. He would throw for 4,583 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions with a 67% completion percentage. At 9-7, the Cardinals clinched the NFC West and made the playoffs from the wild card. They would then go on to make the Super Bowl, as Larry Fitzgerald had one of the greatest playoff runs ever. In the wild card round against Atlanta, Fitzgerald would have 6 receptions, 101 yards, and a touchdown in the 30-24 win. In a 33-13 stomp of the Panthers in the divisional round, Fitzgerald would have 166 yards off the 8 receptions. And in the NFC Championship, Fitzgerald would catch 9 passes for 152 yards and tied an NFL record with 3 receiving touchdowns in the first half of play. The Cardinals won 32-25 and advanced to their first ever Super Bowl in franchise history. Then, Super Bowl 43. If you're a Cards fan watching this video, plug your ears. Kurt Warner would have 377 yards, 3 touchdowns, but 1 critical pick 6 at the very end of the first half to Steelers linebacker James Harrison. Larry Fitzgerald would play out of his mind once again. 8 catches for 127 yards and 2 touchdowns, one of which included a score from 64 yards out to put the Cardinals up 23-20 with only 2 minutes and 37 seconds left on the clock. But that lead would not stand. Pittsburgh wide receiver Santonio Holmes made one of the greatest and most clutch catches in NFL history, scoring a go-ahead tiptoe touchdown with only 35 seconds left of the clock. The extra point put Pittsburgh up by 4. The Cardinals season came to an end in Super Bowl defeat, 27-23. Despite this, though, Larry Fitzgerald still had arguably the greatest single postseason of any receiver ever, really. 30 catches, 546 yards, and 7 touchdowns over 4 playoff games. All of those are NFL playoff records that still stand today. In 2009, the Cardinals would make the playoffs again, this time at 10-6. They would beat the Packers in a 51-45 overtime shootout in the wild card, but be blown out by the Saints 45-14 in the divisional. In January of 2010, Kurt Warner would officially retire from the NFL. And after 2 more mediocre seasons, Ken Wisenhunt would be fired, to be replaced by Bruce Arians, former interim head coach of the Colts and quarterbacks coach of the Colts, who would also bring in Carson Palmer, coming off of a very down year with the Raiders, to be their quarterback of the future for a certain extent. In their first ever season together, the Palmer-Arians duo would go 10-6, but the Cards would still miss the playoffs. In the second season, they would go 11-5, but lose to the 7-8-1 Panthers in the divisional round of the playoffs after both Palmer and the backup were hurt, forcing them to start Ryan frickin' Lindley in a playoff game. The next year, the Cardinals, led by their very high-powered offense, would go 13-3 and beat the Packers in the divisional, even with Aaron Rodgers' double Hail Mary drive, because for whatever reason, not for whatever reason, I know why we lost. We did not lose to the Arizona Cardinals. No. Okay? In that overtime, we lost to Larry Fitzgerald. He put that team on his back and he willed them to a you know what I mean? He willed them to victory. And that's just a Larry Fitzgerald experience. This franchise just let him down for years after years after years of incredible play. One of the greatest wide receivers of all time, and you squander his career like that. Anyway, rant over. Anyways, after beating the Packers in the divisional, they would get blown out by the Panthers in the NFC Championship, 49-15. The next season, the Cards would miss the playoffs at 7-8-1. And then in 2017, they would miss them again with a record of 8-8. In the 2017 offseason, Carson Palmer would retire, along with Bruce Arians. However, his retirement would not last. The 2018 draft would see them pick Palmer's hopeful successor in quarterback Josh Rosen. No, it's not panned out. They would also hire their new head coach, former Panthers defensive coordinator Steve Wilks. They would then go 3-13 with the worst offense in the league. Wilks was out after only one season. Former college guru Cliff Kingsbury was in for 2019. The Cardinals, while they weren't good, not at all, would have at least flashes of light. However, their defense would be absolutely atrocious. 32nd in the league in points and 28th in yards allowed. But that brings us to where we are today after the Cardinals went 5-11 last year. Now here they sit at 5-3 in an incredibly tough NFC West. They have been holding their own in all of the games they've played in. There's still a lot of question marks in the defense, but after robbing the Texans blind for DeAndre Hopkins and an advancement in the careers of both Kyler Murray and Christian Kirk, along with Kenyon Drake revealing himself to be a great offensive weapon in the Kingsbury system, they have a bright future, which is the first time in a long time I believe Cardinals fans can say that. And you know what? Hats off to them, because that's something a lot of teams don't have. However, after that compliment, I have to give my closing thoughts on the team. Because in my opinion, the Arizona Cardinals are the worst franchise in NFL history. They have an all-time record of 558 wins, 763 losses, and 41 ties. They have made the playoffs only 10 times and are 7-9 all-time in playoff games. Discounting this year, because it's not over yet, they have a .425 winning percentage in the regular season and a .438% in the playoffs. Again, this is probably going to get better this year, but bear with me. Keep in mind though, the Cardinals are the oldest franchise in NFL history. The oldest. They have had 100 years to try and win and have not. Other all-time bad franchises have either not been around long enough, or even in the case of the Lions, have more NFL championships. They have 4 and the Cardinals have 2. They haven't had as long of a championship drought either. They won their last one in 1957, which is crazy to think. The Browns also may lay claim in people's minds, but you forget their run of dominance in the 50s and 60s. That really carries them all time, even with the post-hiatus Browns being as terrible as they are. Again, this video is not meant to be an attack on the Arizona Cardinals. It's just my opinion, backed up by some facts, and yeah, poor Larry Fitzgerald. I think at this point, it's impossible not to call him the greatest Arizona Cardinal of all time. One of the greatest receivers in NFL history. Poor Larry Fitzgerald, honestly. One of the greatest wide receivers in NFL history. I think at this point, the greatest Arizona Cardinal of all time, and he has only sniffed a ring once. And that was when he had to put the team on his back and drag them to several victories. He went through years and years and years of terrible, terrible quarterback play, but he just keeps on going. And I have to really respect that. And I feel like Larry Fitzgerald is one of those players that nobody hates. You can't. Anyway, this team has been bad for longer than anyone else. And that's why I submit my opinion that they're the worst franchise in NFL history. And in a weird way, this fascinates me. Just being so bad for so long. It's almost mathematically impossible. They are incomparable. They are the Cardinals. I'd like to thank you for watching this video. Again, Cardinals fans, I apologize. You guys are pretty cool, to be honest. And yeah, like and subscribe and all of that. And I'll try to put out content more consistently. Work just kicked my ass for the last week, and that was about it. So, without further ado, deuces.